What's up, grinders? Today we're going to be checking out a video called My 5 Rules for Speaking English Fluently. I'm not sure why, but YouTube has been sending me videos from this guy. Maybe it believes my form of English is not yet fluent and I need to improve it. But I checked out a few, they were quite interesting. He seems to use a script style methodology, which I think a few of you might also find interesting. And I can provide some insights because I was an actor a very long time ago. So let's check out his video.
Oh, I was kind of hoping that wouldn't be an issue.
You actually broke her watch?
Okay, you actually broke her watch? Why do you have like a... My voice is cracked.
Are we being punished for something?
Are we being punished for something? Are we being punished for something? Kids, I'm gonna tell you an incredible story.
Kids, I'm gonna tell you an incredible story.
Look, I cleaned. I did the windows, I did the floor. This video is all about how to learn English and improve your speaking skill without wasting your time. Now, as you guys know, studying with scripts is all about speaking English fluently, thinking in English, expanding your vocabulary. Now, when it comes to...
Okay, so the first thing you're going to notice from this is that he does have a very fluent level of English, so his sentences flow quite nicely. However, he does have a pronunciation issue, so you can tell he's got a very heavy accent. I think this is going to be kind of a result of his methodology in a bit, because when you're working off scripts, you're not listening to the audio, the native level audio, and therefore you're not improving your pronunciation over time. So that is like one potential issue I can already see with this methodology, but let's let him break it down and we'll see how it works.
To learn English with scripts, I came up with a specific method. There are 5 important rules that you need to follow when it comes to improving your speaking skill and learn English with scripts. Number 1. Don't read the scripts. Scripts are for speaking and acting. They're not for reading. You can't improve your speaking skill by doing reading practice.
Give her a break. It's hard being on your own for the first time. Thank you. You're welcome. I remember when I first came to the city. I was 14. My mom had just killed herself and my stepdad was back in prison.
Okay, give her a break. It's hard being on your own for the first time. Thank you, you're welcome. I remember when I first came to the city, I was 14. My mom had killed herself, my stepdad was back in prison, and I got here, I didn't know anybody. There are 2 key points, important techniques that you must strictly follow. That leads me to the rule number 2. Don't memorize the lines and use your imagination.
So this is obviously a methodology which is better for those who are already in an advanced level of the language, because if you're at the beginning or even in an intermediary stage, you're not going to get that much out of it because you're just going to be stuck trying to repeat these sentences over and over because you have not yet learnt enough words in order to do this. And that's the secondary issue with this, is that this is assuming that you know the vast majority of words, because if there's a lot of words within, say, one sentence you don't know, then you're going to get tripped up a lot. And this is something that even actors in their native language have an issue with. So when I was acting years and years ago, what would happen is if I had a large script and I was going through the lines and I'd memorizing them, it was quite easy to do. However, if you encountered a word that you've very rarely used or you didn't know the pronunciation to, you'd actually have to spend a bit of time just to learn that word independently, and then you could play over this. So I think this could work quite well if you already know a fair few words and you want to basically create a better flow within your language and make it fit better with like real life scenes, but it's not going to work so well if you already have a large amount of gaps within your language abilities.
Now, when it comes to improving your speaking skill with scripts, your goal is to repeat the lines without looking at the scripts and picturing the scenes of the show, movies, or music videos, whatever you're working with. Always keep this in mind. Picture the scenes using your imagination while repeating the lines without looking at the text.
Okay, I just want to add to this. So he says picturing the scenes with your imagination. That's good, you can do that. I actually had to, years ago when I was a tutor, help a Chinese, they were an owner of a business, but they were selling properties and they had to give speeches, but their English was really, really poor. So the way I actually helped them to give quite large speeches is I used a technique called a memory palace. Now I know this is not specifically language based, but it can help you if you need to give a speech in your native language or even another language that you're not so familiar with. So basically the concept behind a memory palace is quite simple. Imagine, for example, you're in your house. So it's very easy to imagine because you've walked it 100 times. You're in your room. Now, the first word within the line that you want to remember, you just put that word on the bed, okay? Like, for example, if the word is, I don't know, cat, imagine there's a cat on your bed. And then imagine if the line says the cat ran out the door and attacked the man at the throat. I don't know. So what you could do then is in your house, you could walk to the front door and you could imagine something happening there. And you're basically using the system called hooks, where you're putting images and stuff in different locations of the house. And then you just walk through the scene and you replay it in your head, and it can help you to remember entire lines. And it's a technique that's actually used by actors to memorize large amounts of lines quickly. You're memorizing the lines, or at least like the entire wording of the lines, and then as you repeat them back, you kind of cement them within your head. So this could be a technique that you could use to memorize entire lines. But here, his idea is that you're trying to imagine the scenes, which is different. But I figured I'll just talk a little bit about that.
That's what will make you speak English fluently. Example. You can see me picturing the scenes from Friends. You can see my face. You can see how I try to remember those scenes. You can see how I picture those scenes. Basically, while I'm repeating those lines without looking at the text.
There is definitely one really good side to his methodology, which I don't think he's pointed out so far, and that's the fact that you're going to follow the mannerisms of whatever language that you're learning. So obviously, for example, you guys have probably all seen the movie Inglourious Bastards where the Nazis catch out the spies because they use the wrong hand sign type of thing, because it's a cultural way of doing things. Like, for example, in Chinese, you got a specific hand-based counting system. So this could be a good way of actually picking up mannerisms and ingraining them with your language, because you're literally replicating scenes within your head.
I picture those scenes. I use my imagination. And that makes you speak English fluently. That's what makes a huge difference when it comes to improving your speaking skill.
And then he killed himself. And then I found aromatherapy. So believe me, I know exactly how you feel.
The word you're looking for is... Anyway...
You ready? I don't think so.
Oh, come on. Cut.
And then he killed himself, and then I found aromatherapy. So believe me, I know exactly how we feel.
There's another thing he forgot to mention here, which I think is actually really good. And that is that as you're learning these words and you're repeating them in these certain scenes, these words are going to automatically replay whenever you're within that environment in real life, because you've already kind of ingrained that word with that feeling, that mood, that moment that you're actually within.
What you're looking for is anyway. It's alright, you ready? I don't think so. Alright, so you ready? I don't think so. Cut. Number 3. Follow a cycle. The worst mistake you can ever do when it comes to speaking is studying superficially. If you don't let your brain process the new information, vocabulary, grammar rules, expressions, all of your efforts will be wasted. So I always had a routine that I strictly used to follow every day. At the time when I was studying with friends, this was the cycle that I was following every single day. This cycle is one of the most important reasons that I speak English.
So you notice what he's doing here? He's doing the same thing every single day. So he's basically just grinding. As you can see, most effective methodologies at the end of the day all come down to grinding. Like I always say on this channel, it doesn't matter how you grind. You could use my method, you could use his method. As long as you're grinding and you're doing it every day, that's how you improve.
Fluently today. What is a cycle? Let me explain it. Every day, I used to study English with scripts, right? At least 2 or 3 hours. Now, you need to follow this cycle very carefully. Now, Friends is 20 minutes long, right? Every day, you will only work on 5 minutes of the episode. First day, 5 minutes. On the second day, another 5 minutes. Third day, another 5 minutes. Fourth day, another 5 minutes. You only focus on those little parts every single day, like 5 minutes out of 20 minutes every single day. At the end of the fourth day, instead of moving on to the next episode, next day, you'll start to work on the episode one more time. If you don't do that, all of the effort, energy you put into in the last 4 days will be for nothing. It will be wasted. So you start over again, and this time, instead of working on like the 5 minutes of the episode a day, you will work on the 7 minutes out of 20 minutes. Like this time,
Okay, so there's one little thing that I want to mention here that I've just kind of thought about. So when I was an actor back in the day, what I would do is I would record the audio of my partner. So there would be my lines and then my partner's lines, and I'd leave a gap between for me to say my lines. So what you could literally do is clip the scene, remove the audio from the person whose role you want to play, and leave the audio of the other people, and then you can literally just play it over and over and over. So that's probably a really effective method. And then you also get the audio input, because so far my concern with his method is that there's been very little audio input, and you're going to rely heavily on your own accent, and you're not going to improve your own accent.
We'll try to finish the episode in 3 days. Day 5, 7 minutes. Day 6, 7 minutes. And the last day of the week, 6 minutes. So basically, you'll be starting and finishing the episodes twice in a week. Then the next week, you get to the next episode and do the same thing. Follow the same routine, and don't finish more than 4 episodes a month. That cycle will make you speak English fluently. If you don't follow this cycle, you will be wasting your time and you will not be improving your speaking skill. Because in order to process every single information properly, you need to follow a cycle, okay? And you can apply this cycle to any movie, any TV show that you're working with, okay? If you're working with a movie, you can apply the cycle. You'll break the movie into...
So I don't think the cycle so much matters here. He says like you need to do this specific cycle. As long as you're doing some form of grinding and it's happening and it's constantly improving each day and you're recording how you're doing it, that's all that really matters. So I think like he's just providing a cycle that works for him.
Many different parts, and you'll every single day focus on like 5 minutes of the movie, and that's it. And you'll do this practice for like 2 hours a day, okay? Number 4, prepare your study materials beforehand. Get every single material ready for your English learning process. So make sure you don't interrupt the process while practicing. If there are words that you don't know, write down their meanings right next to the lines so that during your practice, you don't interrupt the process and constantly stop and look up the words in the dictionary. Never forget that.
This makes perfect sense. Obviously, you're just optimizing your workflow here.
Guys, focus and efficiency is the key. Number 5. Breaks are not for relaxation.
Okay, before I get into this breaks thing, I do want to point out one thing. It looked like he was downloading subtitles. Obviously, if you've worked with subtitles with, say, Netflix, Disney Plus, any of these, the subtitles often don't actually match the audio of the show, and they're often actually riddled with errors because they've been done by a different party as to those who've done the dubbing or the actual original audio. So it's just something to be aware of. Probably better to use, like, say, a video and its subtitles from YouTube, because at least then you know the subtitles is going to match up to the actual audio. And then you can also clip the audio, as I mentioned earlier.
Therefore, getting motivated and not losing your energy and vibe. So when you take a break, make sure that you do something that keeps reminding you that you need to keep studying. After studying for 40 minutes, you feel like so satisfied. You're like, oh, I did it. I deserve a break. Now it's my right to go on my phone because I deserve that, because I studied for like 30 minutes. Now I can go on my phone because I deserve the break. After breaks, I start to feel lazy. So it's so important to do.
So what he's suggesting here, I think, is quite subjective. I actually believe, and I'm pretty sure there's research to back it up, that you should regularly give your brain a break during practice sessions in order for it to just like kind of refresh and reset type of thing. If you just go hard and then you go watch something within the language and then continue going hard, there might be some benefits to that. However, at the same time, you're not giving your brain a little bit of a rest. And if anyone who's done like a hard study session and you take a short break and then you go back at it, you'll kind of notice that you've got like a new burst of energy in a way. So I think it really depends on the person. So I would say this rule is like, it's more one of those ones you need to feel out yourself.
Something that boosts your motivation and energy. Something that reminds the point of studying. So what I do in order to not to get lazy and lose my energy and motivation, I will directly go on YouTube and watch my favorite YouTubers.
So that whole losing my motivation thing, maybe during the break, the great idea could be to go look at your diary where you've recorded everything you've learned over the last, 3 months, year, whatever. And that could just be the motivation that you need. So if it's a motivation thing, then you don't necessarily need to watch the language to get that motivation. You could do it in other ways. And my preference is the diary system.
YouTubers that I like. I like their accents, the way they speak, etc. And be like, oh, I wish I was able to speak like this. Then I would motivate myself. This is how I want to be speaking. So whoever motivates you, just watch them and then keep going. Don't get back to the real world during study hours. Make sure you disconnect from the real world where you see texts in your own language or you hear people speak your language. These are the 5 important rules that I followed every single day. I follow the cycle. I always focused on improving my speaking skill with scripts. This is how I improve my vocabulary, how I improve my speaking skill, and in general, this is how I learned English.
My takeaway from this is that this is a pretty good system. It's another form of grinding if you don't want to use Anki. So if you want to use this system, it's great. My only recommendation is that you actually clip an audio from the TV shows and you play the role of a character in the TV show and you listen to the audio. You have some way of constantly hearing the audio because you don't want to lock yourself down into an accent which is more similar to your native language as opposed to the one you're learning. So overall, I would say this is like a 9 out of 10 strategy. It's really good. So if you do want to try it, give it a shot. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next video. And if you're not there, well then the next script you're reading will be the script of your demise.